Hi everybody, welcome back. In this video, this last in the series, we're going to talk about techniques of lines. We'll talk about line types, line weights, and how to use those line weights to create visual depth in your drawing. So we've been talking this week about lines and how they define the shape of the particular item, the physical item, the three-dimensional item that we're designing or drawing. Most of the lines that you're going to draw are called object lines. These are solid, continuous lines that are meant to represent things that are visible to the eye. Okay. Depending on the point of view, those object lines, contour lines, they can represent a spatial edge. And here's an example right here. This is a spatial edge. That's an edge of this three-dimensional object. Here's an edge of the object. Okay. They can represent an intersection of two planes, so basically a corner or where a plane turns an edge. That's right here and right here. These are corners where something turns. And the object lines could just represent a change in material or a change in color. And those are called surface lines, and we have an example here. Another type of lines that you're going to use in this class is called hidden lines. Hidden lines are used to reveal the edges that are actually concealed from view. They're behind something, right? And we draw them as some closely spaced dashes. There's actually many different types of lines that you will use as an architect to help aid in communication in your technical drawing. In this graphics and sketching class, we're mostly just going to use the first couple. So let's take a look at a very light line would be called a construction line or a guideline. Okay. A solid continuous line is a visible line, also called an object line. And we just heard about the hidden line, which is a line of dashes. Okay. As you continue your studies in technical drawing and move along in the program, you're going to be working with dimension lines, extension lines, center lines, which is a long and then short and then long dash, phantom line, which has two short and then a long, and some cutting plane lines, which are like this, and then indicate a view direction. That's what the little arrows are for. Next, let's talk about line weight. Line weight is another communication tool used in technical drawing and in representative drawing. Okay? And it's used for ease of readability and to set items apart from each other. And when we're talking about line weight, by the way, we're talking about the width or the thickness of the line and not whether it's black or gray, right? We're assuming that all lines are of equal tone, they're all black, and this is whether they're thick or thin. In representative drawing, or more art type drawing, we use line weights to communicate some spatial distinctions, and you'll use a hierarchy of line weights, thicker to thinner. In both technical drawing and representative drawing, you're going to use a range of line weights in your piece of work. In technical drawing, you'll have a very thin line for a hatching. You'll have a light, medium, and heavy line, and you'll have a very heavy line that we use for a profile. Your selection of line weights should be in proportion to the specific size and scale of your drawing. Here's an example of some different line weights. Starting kind of at the bottom here, we have very light lines. Okay, to lay out your drawings, organizing grids. You might use them for some surface textures and especially for some guidelines. Light lines right here are used for maybe a change in material or color, but not a contour or an edge of the actual item. Your medium lines, these are going to kind of be most of your lines, will indicate the edges of your items. And we got your heavy solid lines, okay? In technical drawing, those are going to be the items that you cut through. They're going to be profile lines, and they're going to be your most important edges. So let's take a look at some examples of some technical drawings and how we use line weight in these drawings to aid in communication. And you can see on the left, we've got a drawing with a profile line in a very heavy line weight. Right here. So we can easily tell that we are actually cutting through this item. And then these surface lines indicating the materiality of that far wall are a much lighter line weight. In the construction drawing on the right, you can see also the items that have been cut through are a much heavier weight. We've got some, again, some surface texture back here that is a much lighter weight. And finally, there are some dimension lines and extension lines that are of a thin line weight. Now, as you know, your drawings are actually two-dimensional. There's no particular depth to them, but as artists, we are going to create visual depth. Visual depth is the illusion of distance or three-dimensionality drawn on a 2D or flat surface. Okay? Without that depth, all right, if you don't put this visual depth in your composition, it will look very flat and less lifelike, right? So here's an example of that. We've got a line drawing, a contour drawing of an apple with line weight and without line weight. Oops, other way around, I said it wrong. Without line weight and with line weight. You can tell that one of these drawings has additional visual depth and a little bit of three-dimensionality just in this very simple variation of line weight. Okay. Line weight is one tool to depict visual depth. We're going to talk about some others next week. And that visual depth is also called the element of form. Okay, so we're showing the form of that three-dimensional object. Here's an example of visual depth in an architectural drawing. The items closer to the observer, closer to the picture plane, are using a darker or heavier line weight. That's these trees and bushes. Okay, and then the items receding behind that, we've got the actual house back here, and then farther in the distance, looks like a railing, are using a lighter and lighter line weight. All right, everybody, in this video we covered different kinds of line types, including the alphabet of lines. We covered line weight, what it is, and how we're going to use it. And we learned that line weight is one way to help us as architects and as artists indicate visual depth.